Charging handles. These T-shaped pieces of engineering are what allow us to manually interface with the bolt to kickstart the cycle of operations. It's also one of the gateway drug upgrades in the AR-15 world, even though we really only interface with it at 2 points during use. Why is this bog standard charging handle $20 and why is this one almost $125? Today we're going to find out. We're going to start by disassembling a couple of these charging handles, and then we're actually going to move out to the back and break some of them in half to see what they're actually made out of. Let's get into it. If I had to make a bet, your rifle probably came stocked with this exact charging handle. It's a boring, mil-spec standard T-shaped system, but 2 minutes with the pin punch and $11 later, you can upgrade that boring mil-spec system with an extended latch that enhances the overall usability of it by widening out the wing where your hand actually interfaces with your charging handle. Look, if you're never doing anything past sitting on the bench and plinking with your AR-15, you can probably stop watching right here. Heck, even if you're taking regular carbine classes and you're just getting into competition shooting, this might be all you ever need to do to maximize your rifle's charging handle right now. In a perfect world, we interface with the charging handle at 2 critical points during the manual of arms with the AR-15. First, when we chamber around to get the gun ready to fire, and when something inevitably goes wrong and we need to clear the chamber to manually kickstart the cycle of operations back to square one. So the question remains, why are some charging handles just $20 and other charging handles $125? To find out, we're going to start by putting all of our charging handles out on the table so that we can examine them one by one. First, we've got our mil-spec charging handle. To disassemble it, I'm going to need a pin punch and just a little bit of patience. In this case, we're looking at a 6061 T6 aircraft grade aluminum for the material makeup of the charging handle itself, and it's made exactly to the mil-spec standard. There's no frills here, there's nothing fancy, it's just a basic aluminum charging handle that we've all dealt with a bunch of times. All right, so that's our $20 charging handle. There's nothing special about it, and it's pretty obvious why a lot of people choose to make an upgrade from here, but we're going to discuss the why just a little bit later. Next up, let's disassemble the Breek sledgehammer and take a look at all the parts inside of that guy. The first thing you're going to notice on the sledgehammer that's not on the mil-spec charging handle is this raised shelf. This interlocks with the upper receiver and helps with mitigating the gas that would otherwise be blowing right back into your face. The win here is pretty simple. Less gas blowback means less toxic fumes for you to breathe in and a much better shooting experience overall. You're also going to notice this keyway and these 2 aggressive cuts here at the rear. Again, these are part of the gas mitigation system for this charging handle. A lot of people look at these and think they're really only good for suppressed shooting, but that's not exactly the case. You're going to get gas blowback on any direct impingement system just by the nature of how the firearm operates, and these cuts help keep that gas out of your face. We'll talk about the materials of the sledgehammer and the Radian when we're out in the shop and actually snap them in half to get a look at the materials on the inside, but I want to move on to getting the Radian taken apart next so we can get a look at what that actually looks like. So on this Radian here, you'll notice already that we've got a lot more portholes cut into the charging handle, which enables the gas to be ejected far forward of the user's face up near the ejection port cover. We maintain the same high lock up here in the back where the charging handle actually interfaces with the upper receiver, but the aggressive porting pushes even more of that gas forward to get us a slightly improved gas busting situation on the Radian. With that though, you'll notice that the wings are much stubbier up here on this particular charging handle. The intent here from Radian is to maintain the ambidextrous ergonomics while leaving less overhang for the charging handle to get caught up on your shirt or your chest rig or your plate carrier or whatever other cool guy thing CJ's wearing out at the range. Super intentional design choice by Radian for this specific charging handle, but if you prefer the longer wings, the Radian guys have that out there too. It's just a preference thing based on what you need with your charging handle. Okay, well, I put these back together, and before we go snapping charging handles in half out in the back with a sledgehammer, let's talk about the why real quick. There's 3 main problems that force a charging handle upgrade outside of just choosing a new charging handle because it looks cool and comes in the color that you want. But I mean, those are also totally legitimate reasons to upgrade your charging handle too. I'm not your dad, guys. You can do whatever you want with your gun. First, I want everyone in the class to raise your hand. If you put up your right hand, go ahead and put that hand back down for me. all my lefties, your hands are still up because you're the group of people that are primarily responsible for charging handle upgrades. Like everything related to the military, things are standardized to keep costs down. That means focusing on right-handed people first, because that's the majority of people, and asking the lefties to just adapt and overcome. It's okay, guys, all shooters are born right-handed. The best overcome it with ambidextrous rifle upgrades that look super cool, and also with additional practice so you can get used to using stuff with your correct hand. Here's the thing about you left-handed shooters. Over time, shooting has evolved because of lefty techniques specifically. We've learned from training and real-world data in combat that being as close to ambidextrous as possible as a shooter is actually a critical skill. Everything about ambi controls, from safeties to charging handles, makes the weapon better to work with in real-world and competition shooting scenarios, leading to faster and more positive control of the rifle that you're working with. So even if you're not a lefty, consider getting some ambi controls for your setup. They're a huge upgrade from a comfort perspective, and they're gonna probably make you better on the range if you practice with them. Where are all my LPVO and prism optic guys at? Your optics are the second reason why you might want to do an expensive charging handle upgrade. If your optic sits low, it could potentially interfere with a stock mil-spec charging handle. If you found yourself in a situation where you're scraping the heck out of your index finger on the body of your optic while you're trying to work the charging handle, an upgrade might be in order, my friend. The longer wings on the more modern charging handles out there today are gonna mitigate that scraping problem and give you more real estate to purchase when you're actually interfacing with the charging handle. This has the added benefit of making it easier to use if you're in a northern state like we are here in Minnesota, where sometimes you just need to shoot with gloves on when you're outside to prevent frostbite. Now, we've touched on this a little bit already too, but another reason that you might want to upgrade is to mitigate gas blowback. I've shot some super gassy firearms in my day, and if you're in the same camp as me, you know that any small percent gain that you can get with defeating that gas blowback is going to make a huge difference in the overall enjoyability of shooting the firearm. I'm looking at you, M16A1 with a suppressor. Speaking of suppressors, if you're running suppressed or you're almost exclusively shooting at indoor ranges, then I highly recommend making your first upgrade a charging handle with a higher shelf in the rear where the charging handle connects with the receiver at the very least. Your nose, your eyes, and your lungs are gonna thank you for it, trust me. And this one is a little bit of a bonus that we've gotta mention. It's durability. Since we're about to go snap some of these things in half, we've gotta talk about the material makeup of these things. If a charging handle is gonna break, in my experience, you're almost always going to exclusively see that happen right here at the L where the charging handle interfaces with the bolt carrier group. Getting an upgraded charging handle will likely mean that you're getting something made with better manufacturing processes and higher grade materials, which will lead you to having a more durable charging handle in the long run, obviously, or so we think. Since we're talking about durability, let's go see what happens when we hit these guys with a sledgehammer. Okay, so we're in the back, and the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a lead cut into each of these charging handles in about the same spot. What that's gonna do is it's gonna help tell the metal where we want it to snap. Theoretically, all of them should snap right around where I've put those cuts. We're gonna be putting each charging handle into this bench vise after I've made the cuts, and then we're gonna smack it with this hammer to cause it to snap in half. First up, we're gonna go with the 6061, and that's gonna be the mil-spec charging handle. I'm gonna go ahead and put the cut in that about halfway up. Ready? Yep. That is our first one. 6061 is a softer metal, so it actually bent on the first hit. We'll put these back in the studio, and we'll get on there with a macro lens, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Let's get the next one. We can see that that pretty much broke exactly where I told it to. We got this dramatic bend on that first hit. This is the Warhammer. We're gonna saw it first. The 7075 T6 aluminum. This is a type 2 hard coat anodized, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check, and the editor will make a note if I'm wrong. So we're gonna start smacking it with the hammer. It should snap right in this spot. That did not snap where I told it to. That snapped where it was held by the vise. You can kind of see the metal here. We'll get in tight with the macro lens and we'll talk about it. So this is the Radian Raptor LT that we are breaking. It broke on the first swing. There was no bend to it. That's because this is a much harder aluminum. Okay, let's hit back to the studio real quick and we'll get the macro lens on these and talk about it. So we're back here in the studio and I've got some macro lens pictures. On the left, we've got the 6061 T6 aluminum mil-spec charging handle, and on the right, we've got the 7075 T6 Type 2 hard coat anodized charging handle from Breek. It's their Warhammer. Now you might have noticed out in the back that we decided to break a Warhammer and a different Radian Raptor. That's because both of these charging handles have been pretty heavily used in our studio, and I didn't think that would make for a fair test, so we got two brand new charging handles and a brand new mil-spec charging handle to snap in half out in the back to make sure everything would be nice and fair throughout, even though it's not really gonna be fair because they're different machining processes and they're different metal types. So on the left, you can see in the 6061 here how much rougher this cut is. This is just kind of a softer aluminum, and we saw that the aluminum charging handle actually bent with the first impact. And then on the Breek, we actually have a very clean cut that you can see all of the metal grain kind of on the inside here. And that's because this charging handle broke lower down than where the cuts, you can see there's some incisions here that we made trying to force it to break in the same spot as the other charging handles. It didn't snap there, it snapped where the bench vise was touching on the bottom. Not a huge issue, but because of that, we can see the entire break and the metal grains as well. Now, I'm not a professional metal guy. I'm sure someone down in the comments is a Forged in Fire champion. They might be able to tell us what these metal grains mean a little bit more than I can right off the bat. If you give me 1 second, I'm gonna pull up the Radian Raptor so you can see that on the screen as well. On the screen here, we've got the Radian Raptor charging handle, and you can actually see on this where the saw marks are on the charging handle itself. I put that in there, like I said earlier, because I wanted to force it to break in the same spot. Didn't quite work that way with the Breek, but it did work with both the mil-spec after it bent, and it worked with the Radian charging handle as well. With this, we can kind of see the outline of the Type 3 hard coat anodization on the charging handle itself, and there's a bit of brown in here, which to me means maybe there was either an imperfection in the metal, or I was talking to a buddy of mine. He said this could have been oxidization that occurred at the moment of the break when the metal actually heated up from the kinetic energy of me smacking it with the hammer. And then he also said, you know, it could have just been some rust from the saw blade down here that got caught in the metal as I was breaking it. So I'm not too sure on that. If any of you guys are metal experts, I'd love to hear your opinion down in the comments section. All right, so I've been thinking about this for like a week now, and I realized that these images that I showed you of the aluminum don't really tell the full story. For the average person, what you really need to know is this: 6061 T6 is a softer material that's cheaper to acquire and easier to manufacture with than 7075 T6 aluminum. We can see that in the softness and the way the mil-spec charging handle just bent on the first impact with the hammer, and also in some of the more common breakage points that I showed you with other mil-spec charging handle examples. That doesn't really answer the question of why the Breek charging handle is so much cheaper than the Radian charging handle though. Both charging handles use 7075 T6 aluminum, both use Type 3 hard coat, and we can probably assume that both companies have similar internal manufacturing processes to get them to their end product. Heck, even when you get down to the warranties, both of them offer a limited lifetime warranty. So what's the catch? Why is the Radian so much more expensive than the Breek in most cases? So where Radian wins out is in the fact that they have an extreme first mover advantage in the market. They were one of the pioneers in the ambidextrous charging handle game, and that in turn has led to them having a great brand reputation with high demand from a majority of builders that are looking for the most high-end option that they can find. While it might not be something that everyone wants to just admit outright, everything I just said means Radian is able to charge more for their product because they've earned their reputation in this space. Now that doesn't mean that Breek sucks or that they're a cheap alternative to Radian. It just means that Radian has been in the game longer, and some people are okay with paying the premium price to get the Radian aesthetic on their firearm, which could in turn get them more updates on Reddit. If you want to see us break more charging handles to get a look at the metallurgy inside, let us know down in the comment section below. And be sure to hit that subscribe button while you're down there if you found any value in this video at all. Oh, and here's a video of Randy testing out some of the gas busting aspects of these charging handles. We'll see you in the next one.